Hey y'all, what is going on? What is going on? It's your girl, Melba Pearson, Melba for Miami, Melba for Justice, also known as the resident legal diva. And it is time for another Mondays with Melba. So, first off, you see, I'm an abortion rights Barbie. So, this is just a reminder for all of us here in Florida that Amendment 4 is going to be on our ballot this November. So, if you're voting early, voting by mail, whatever the case may be, Amendment 4 is going to be on the ballot, and that is going to change our Constitution to make sure that reproductive rights is still everyone's individual choice. It basically will legalize and codify, use a legal term, making sure that folks can get access to abortion care if they so desire and if they need it. So, more than 60% of Floridians are into this. We need more than 60% of Floridians to come out and vote for it. So don't talk about it, be about it, please. And in that same vein, I'm very excited to bring a fabulous candidate for the Florida State House, Joe Saunders. Joe, welcome to Mondays with Melba. So glad to have you here.
I am honored. It is a privilege to be here with the icon, Melba Pearson, who also might just happen to be my neighbor. I think you're like 4 blocks north of me, are you? You're like, we could like wave at each other.
Right? Like, hey, boo. So, Joe, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background. This is not your first foray into public service. So educate folks and tell them what you're all about.
It is not my first time in this rodeo, in this hurricane that I have found myself in. My name is Joe Saunders. I'm the Democrat running to represent Florida House District 106 in the Florida House of Representatives. That is a district that includes Miami Beach, specifically South Beach, where Melba, you and I both live, and covers all of Miami's beaches, north from South Beach. So it's 10 cities that are all Miami Beach's barrier islands. It runs from Miami Beach all the way up to Aventura and Golden Beach. But you're right, this is not my first time in the public space or in public life. In fact, I've spent 20 years in Florida working to improve people's lives and live, I've lived really at that intersection between nonprofit organizations, advocacy, and public policy. Today, I am the senior political director at Equality Florida. I've spent almost 20 years working with Equality Florida in the national LGBT civil rights movement, but specifically with a focus on Tallahassee. I've worked in the abortion rights movement as a member of the Floridians Protecting Freedom campaign and a broader coalition focused on reproductive freedom in the state. As Equality Florida, I've been able to be a founding member of the Florida Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence and was a very big part of responding to the tragedy at Pulse nightclub in Orlando, where I used to live. I grew up in South Florida, but lived in Orlando for some time. And then, of course, after the tragedy at Parkland, was a part of the coalition that helped to support those students to win some really, really important reforms back in 2018. So I've sort of touched a lot of areas of policy. In fact, Melba, I don't even know if you remember this, but you and I first met doing voting rights work when I think you were with the ACLU. I've worked on voting rights in the state, fighting to make sure that Floridians have access to the ballot, as we know that right is being eroded often here in Florida. But I think in terms of this role, running for this position, what may be most relevant is that I'm a former member of the Florida House of Representatives. I grew up in South Florida, was raised in Broward. Half my family lived in Kendall, so I really am a South Florida baby. A rare thing to be born and raised in Florida, I know, but I was. And then I moved to Orlando to go to school at the University of Central Florida, where I earned 4 degrees, 2 master's degrees, one in policy and one in nonprofit management. And in 2012, after the redistricting process happened, for the first time, the University of Central Florida, which is a sister university to FIU, very similar, they're very large, public, urban research universities. But that was sort of where I was born. I sort of found my consciousness in organizing and advocacy. And after doing organizing work in that region of the state for about 10 years, a brand new district was drawn over UCF. And so at 29, I ran for the Florida House. I won, and I was elected one of the first LGBT members of the Florida legislature. It was me and David Richardson, who actually represented this district, ironically. And
Yeah.
David and I sort of broke the lavender ceiling in the Florida Capitol together. But in that role, I got to work on a lot of really important policy that's become really relevant for this campaign now. So that's my background, and I'm excited to throw my hat in the ring. We need balance in the Florida Capitol. I'm sure we'll talk about that more. The person who represents you and I today does not represent our values or the majority of people who live here, and I think it's time for change.
Absolutely. So, thank you for at least, taking us through not only your history, but the long legacy that you've had in fighting around different policy areas that touches so many of our lives, right? Like, you think of all the work with Equality Florida that's for our LGBTQ plus family, but also voting rights, which impacts all of us, gun safety, which impacts all of us and our kids. So again, you're not new to this, you're true to this, which I'm all about that. So tell us a little bit more about what you hope to accomplish this go round in Tallahassee. Because again, you've been there before, you know where the bathroom is, you know where the general chamber is, so you can hit the ground running. Tell us a little bit about what you're planning on doing.
Yeah. What I'll say often on the campaign trail, and it's been a long trail. I've been running for 16 months now. I declared in May of last year. But what I'll say often is there's a lot of things I don't know, or many, many things I don't know. And I think campaigns, when they're best, are more about listening than me talking. And I've been listening a lot to what people here feel like the leadership that represents them should work on. But what I do know is Tallahassee. I understand that building. I understand that it's as important what you stop sometimes as it is what you pass and what you move. That feels especially important today in Governor Ron DeSantis's Florida, a government and state that is now run not just by a triad of power, of Republican power in both the executive, judicial, and legislative branches, but is controlled by supermajorities, conservative supermajorities in the House and Senate. So, there's a lot of things that I want to work on, but what I really think the mission is this year for all of us, not just in this district, but across the state, is to bring some balance back to the Capitol. When the legislature, it's hard for people who don't go to the Capitol. You and I go there all the time, right? Like as advocates, this is what we're called to do. But I think everyday normal people who don't eat, sleep, and breathe public policy may not understand that the reason why the state feels unrecognizable right now, right? It's like, how did we blink and all of a sudden became a state that bans books and throws them into dumpsters? How did we become a state? We were a state, even though we're a southern state, we have been a state that has actually really kind of held back on some of the worst restrictions around abortion rights, for example. There have been Republican members of the legislature who have stood up and spoken out against restrictions on abortion rights in Florida. How did we go from being the sort of horizon state on LGBT rights 10 years ago when David and I were elected to the poster child for anti-LGBTQ extremism in this state? And then, of course, there's the issues like property insurance. Like, how are we leading? How is it that we're leading the country with no real solutions, no actual viable working solutions on how to solve economic challenges in the state of 24 million people? Well, the answer to that to me is pretty simple. It's that right now, Democrats can come in the middle of a legislative session, can come together, stand up, walk out of the room, and the super majorities that control both the House and the Senate can continue their business without ever even needing to think about the perspective and values of millions of people in this state that aren't from the most conservative right-wing parts of the Republican caucus and the electorate. That's the problem. It's like we sort of all been, there are moderate Republicans in that building and in this state who don't like what they're seeing. But the process is held hostage by the most extreme, most conservative wings of Republican politics. And that's what feels wrong to me. And the only way to get through that, the only way past that, is that some careers need to end. Some people who never should have won seats, like the one you and I live in, that they don't get to go back. They voted out of alignment with their district. And so I want to answer the question that you asked very clearly, though. What are the things that I think we need to work on in Tallahassee? We need to put down manufactured culture wars, right? We need to put down book bans. We need to stop attacking women's decisions, what they do with their bodies. We need to stop attacking the LGBTQ community. We need to stop attacking immigrants, right? Stop othering people and start working on the issues in a bipartisan way that people actually really care about. What I hear about the most often on the campaign trail is, why is my property insurance so high? Why is everything so expensive? Why is Florida unaffordable right now? And specifically for this district, this intersection, Melba, between the condo safety law that recently passed, 85% of this district lives in condos, and the costs that are now coming, the sort of unanticipated overwhelming wave of special assessments and costs that are coming in. That's the stuff that Republicans and Democrats should be able to team up on and come up with some really good solutions for that our policy could solve. That's what I want to work on, amongst many other things. But, if it's going to be more of the same, then I will be there to be a champion fighting against restrictions on voting rights, the weaponization of state government and state power to intrude in people's private lives. We'll fight if we have to. But what I hope is that we get to the place where we break the supermajorities and the message is clear from the electorate. We want real bipartisan solutions to actual problems, not fake ones that are about helping Ron DeSantis win Republican primary voters in Iowa.
Right, which they didn't work anyway. Because the voters in Iowa were like, yeah, all that culture war stuff is cute, but how is that going to impact what's going on at my kitchen table? And he didn't have a sufficient answer for that. So that's why he lost Iowa and the rest of the other, Republican primaries, because nobody was interested in what he had to say. And I just love how you talked about the fact that unanticipated wave coming for condo dwellers, because, I'm a condo dweller as well. I'm part of the 85%. And it's frightening because you think about not only are your HOAs, your homeowner association fees going to go up because, so backing up for folks who don't know, post Surfside, a new law was put in place to basically address the issue of a lot of these big buildings. They don't have reserves. So anytime there's time for repairs and stuff like that, it's either huge assessments, which people sometimes walk away from because they can't afford it, or they just don't do the repairs and the building crumbles slowly and slowly over time, which is what resulted in one of the reasons why the horrible tragedy in Surfside occurred. So as a result, now all of these buildings are scrambling because they're like, well, we've been cruising with no reserves for how many years? This law is requiring us to have reserves. We got to come up with that money quick, which means they're going to hit every homeowner with an assessment, which could be $10,000, $20,000, $50,000. You don't know till you get your bill. And then your homeowners association fees will increase. Think about it if you're a senior and you're on a fixed income. And you bought your house, your condo free and clear. This was your retirement dream. But now you're getting all these crazy assessments and homeowners association bills coming in. And your Social Security hasn't increased. Your pension or the 401k you're living off of hasn't increased. So how are people supposed to live? So
Right.
this is a huge issue that we're not addressing and needs to be addressed, rather than running around worrying about book bans or trying to find fraud in a voter ballot initiative when literally everybody signed petitions because they want it on the ballot, but you don't want it on the ballot, so you're going to try trickery. Anyway, I digress. Back to you, Joe.
Listen, preach. That's all real. And what I say often is, this is a playbook of Republicans in this state, specifically within Florida. When they don't think they can win on the merits, they cheat. And I think we see that over and over again in the state. And I do think that's what we're seeing on the Amendment 4 campaign. One of the hats I get to wear, a real privilege that I am very lucky to be able to serve under, is the role of an advisory board member to the Floridians Protecting Freedom Amendment 4 campaign. So, we were in my day job, we were one of the first organizations to step up and sort of help call within a coalition for the need to protect abortion rights in the state constitution, not just to repeal the 6-week ban, but to protect abortion rights and women's reproductive freedom in this state from any legislative attacks moving forward. If this right is enshrined in the state constitution, no governor's executive order, no legislative attack from the most far right conservative members can infringe upon this right. But what we're seeing from the governor right now, we saw this around, it was Amendment 4 then too, wasn't it? Right?
The other Amendment 4 back in 2018 around restoring the right to vote to people with felony convictions. Yes.
You're right. And I know that's been a big part of your work. We've seen this over, and it's the same playbook over and over again. It's like, if you can't win on the merits, we will see them try to cheat. And what we're seeing now, this sort of weaponization of the state agency ACA, the Agency for Healthcare Administration, which is sort of our big healthcare agency here in Florida, trying to spread literal political misinformation about the scope of Amendment 4 for the purpose of, sort of distorting for Floridians who are about to vote on this in less than 30 days. It's just an example of how the state, I think, is really off track. And, and it is illegal, by the way. I don't know if this is where you wanted to go with our time level, but you got me on a soapbox. It is clear. It is so obviously illegal for the governor to use a state agency to put out political information about a ballot measure. That is, and I think we'll see litigation soon. I don't know, maybe somebody on this thread will be a part of that litigation. Smart lawyers, I'm sure, are looking at all of this. But I think we're going to see lawsuits, but it's just the disinformation and the electioneering is the point, right? And so I just think we all have to be really, I'm expecting this in my race. I'm expecting shenanigans and sort of those October surprises that are just, leveraging the different things needed that they need to do to cheat. But I also think that the electorate sees through some of this right now, Melba. It's like we've all been held hostage by these really extreme politics for the last 2 years. I mean, certainly in some ways for a lot longer than that, but it's been so hyper focused these last 2 years. And I think people see through that. And I think we're going to win a lot this cycle.
I hope so. I mean, I think nationally, if you're looking at the trends, you're seeing that, number one, enshrining abortion rights has been a winning issue. We've seen that in Kansas. I mean, we've seen that in deep red states where they're like, no, thank you. We want people to have the right to choose. So we see that. We're seeing Republican women here in Florida mobilizing, like in deep red Sarasota. They're like, shh. And they're gathering to, mobilize around supporting Amendment 4. So this is, and I think that's why the governor and others are panicking, because they're seeing their own party being like, nah, bro, you're on your own on this one. We're not supporting this. So I think that's going to result in a lot of wins this go round. So before I go any further, so first off, how do people find you, find out more about you, your campaign, learn more, and support, because support's important?
Absolutely. And it will be important. So the best way to reach us is through our website. It's joesaunders.vote. Please, you can learn more about me and the issues that I care about, and certainly about our campaign, but that's also a place where you can donate if that's what you have if the only thing you can do, if the only way you can help from wherever you are in internet land around the state and country, please consider supporting our campaign with a donation. And Walk with Joe Weekdays is upon us. It is happening every day. I go out every day but Friday. I give myself off on Fridays for now, Melba. I'm sure in like the next 2 weeks, my campaign team is like, no, Fridays are in. But we do Monday through Thursday, and then we're doing day of action programs on Saturday and Sunday. So we've got a big universe of Democrats and NPAs and even some Republicans we have to go talk to and bring the good news about what we're trying to accomplish. And please come help.
So I echo all of that. Number one, money is huge, but number two, come knock doors. That is highly helpful, and it's a great way to get engaged with the community. Third, you can phone bank or text bank. Again, don't need to leave your house, can do it from the couch, and you can reach out to other voters to let them know that this is a very important election, that they need to engage, learn more, and definitely turn out and vote. Vote by mail ballots, they dropped today. Like today. So this week, you're going to be getting your vote by mail ballots. If you've already signed up for it, you would be receiving it starting this week. Now, some of you may choose to vote in person. Totally cool. The last 2 weeks of October are going to be early voting, which means you can vote at any early voting precinct. It doesn't have to be your own. Then you can also vote, obviously, on Election Day, Tuesday in November. And of course, you have to go to your assigned polling place, and 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Of course, I'm going to remind everyone in terms of logistics on voting and all of that. But more importantly to Joe, I give him my full endorsement with my entire chest. His opponent has voted out of step with our constituency. He went up to Tallahassee, and I will tell you a quick story. His opponent, Fabian Basabe, I ran into him with my husband when we were dropping off our vote by mail ballots during early voting. And he was canvassing outside of Miami Beach City Hall, and he was just like, hey, who did you vote for? And I'm like, dude, you're not supposed to ask me that question, but be that as it may. And he's like, Like he could tell, like from the look on my face, I clearly didn't vote for him. And so he's like, well, listen, tell your friends, I'm a moderate Republican. Day one, as soon as I get up to Tallahassee, I'm going to introduce on day one a bill to support and protect a woman's right to choose. Okay, it's 2 years later. Yeah, that bill never came, right? And instead, he voted in favor of the Don't Say Gay law, despite, you know, his personal life being aligned with said cause, but separate issue. Not going to shame whatever you do in your house is your business, but at the same token, you shouldn't get up to Tallahassee and then vote against basically your own interests because you think you're insulated. So that's not cool. And again, he has not been responsive to the needs of the community. He has voted out of step consistently. He has always voted on the side of the governor versus the fact that this is a very progressive district. This is not a conservative district by any stretch of the imagination. So for him to go up and start voting in that way, listen, he has betrayed all the people who thought and believed the words he said during his campaign. So let's send him packing because we don't need a George Santos here in Miami, right? There's one in New York, and you saw how his world ended. Let's not perpetuate that here. Let's all get behind Joe, support him, and get him to Tallahassee so we can start having common sense legislation to deal with the real issues that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis and not foolishness. So for all y'all, just know I'm going to drop in the comments as well as in the chat or in the body of the video the link to Joe's website so that way you can check it out. You can share it with friends and family. But most importantly, please, 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 please make sure to vote. This is not an election to sit out. You shouldn't be sitting out any of them. But don't be up here and just be like, okay, Kamala, and skip the rest of the ballot, okay? Down ballot is equally as important, if not more important than the presidency, because this is your day-to-day life. This is your taxes. This is your homeowner's insurance. This is affordable housing and, rental caps, things like that. Like your day-to-day kitchen table issues are on the ballot. So with that, Joe, thank you for joining Mondays with Melba.
What a privilege. What an honor. What an icon. Thank you. Thank you, Melba. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for all of your years of advocacy. Really, I don't know that the people who watch your show fully understand how long you have been in these trenches doing this work, doing the good work. And I just really appreciate being invited to this platform that you've built. I really appreciate you and all you do.
My pleasure, Joe. You are the best. All right, y'all, take good care, stay engaged, and I will see you next week. Bye.